Hi, and welcome to another edition of the UNCAGED podcast. I'm Dan Hawk, joined by Executive Athletic Director Dustin Smith. We're going to be joined by head wrestling coach Rodney Jones in just a little bit, but right now we're going to talk some basketball with Dustin Smith. Dustin, just tell me about basketball season is finally back here.
Man, it's been a I don't want to say a hibernation, but it's been a little time since obviously our basketball teams have played and the boys were in the finals last year, and Coach Wallace trying to get this year going. Excited about that, and Coach Coffey with the budding star that he has, and Mackenzie Mathurin, and just the opportunity that they have. Man, it's an exciting time of the year. The weather cools down, but the basketball action heats up, and we're excited about that.
Both teams on the road last night, both picking up wins. Mackenzie Mathurin, will start off with the girls' side. Over 40 points. I mean, she had 30 offers coming into the season. She's committed to Nebraska, but she's going to be the catalyst to that team to keep that engine going.
Well, I went up and watched them play in Willard at that tournament, and they played that first day against Harrison, and Mackenzie got in some foul trouble early, but still led us in scoring and won that first-round game, and so I got to see that. And then last night, she was in the zone. And, those basketball players, that happens from time to time. And she was really in the zone. I mean, she made 9 or 10 from 3. I can't remember what she made. But she was incredibly gifted last night. And just in the zone, you could just see she's the best player on the floor. She had 28 in the first half and then only played 3 quarters and had 41 points on the game. So she played incredibly well. We scored 80 as a team and held Muskogee to 19 points. So they had a beautiful facility, and we were able to come in there and Coach Coffey will tell you we got a district win, and we were 1-0 in district, and that's the important part. So we got there. A lot of kids contributed. A lot of kids played well, and we were able to win, and that's the important part.
I'm glad you brought that up about district play, because that's what this is all about. When you play these games that matter, the level of excitement is moved up just a little bit more.
Well, and that's a change this year that we've seen in basketball, because it used to be they'd go off rankings and your non-conference and what that looked like. Well, now it's the 14 games in district that really matter, and that's going to seed you in the postseason tournament. So that game mattered a lot for our girls, and then our boys came out, and a little sluggish start at first. First quarter was good. Second quarter kind of slowed down a little bit, and then third and fourth quarter turned it on and won by nearly 30.
When it comes to the boys, it feels like head coach Bo Wallace is still trying to find his guys coming together, because they had to replace a lot of dudes that were no longer part of this team as of graduation and so forth.
Yeah, and he's piecing that together, and he's still trying to figure some of that out. But some of those kids had some significant playing time last year. Saw the floor for a while. CJ, the point guard, played. He's been playing since he's a freshman, so he knows the floor. He knows what he's doing, and you see the starting lineup. And it's still a young group, and it's a young group of guys that got a lot of potential and continue to see where that ceiling's going to be for them. But it was big. Go on the road last night with a young squad and be able to come out with an almost 30-point win is pretty impressive for our boys.
Season opener coming up this next week with Choctaw for both boys and girls. How special is this to come back inside this field house for the event back at home?
Yeah, it's always fun to play at home. And, when obviously district games matter, the boys are playing in Bishop Kelly this weekend for a tournament. Like the girls played at Willard last weekend. So the boys will play in Bishop Kelly this weekend, but the home opener is always a fun time. It's a neat time to just kind of introduce our fans to who our team is and who our players are, and let them see them on their home floor. And so we're excited to be back in Tiger Fieldhouse. We're excited for the teams to kick off their home slate. There's only 7 home games, so you got to make sure you get to this one, and then there's one the 19th, and then we'll start back in January when we're back here for the remaining 5 conference games or district games here. So this is a big game. We hope the community will come out and support our kids and see a really good product on both the girls and boys side.
The biggest takeaway that you kind of brought up was the holiday break. And it's not just for basketball. I mean, we'll be visiting with Coach Jones in a little bit, but just overall, that holiday break, it's a positive as the kids get time to refresh and refuel and whatnot, but it's also kind of a head scratcher for coaches, because their kids go away and they still want them to be in basketball shape and wrestling shape and so forth.
Yeah, and the winter sports, they don't really get Christmas break. I mean, they get a few days, but they also, those 2 weeks that we're out of school, they're still doing stuff. They're practicing, playing games, they're in tournaments, they're wrestling, whatever, they're swimming, whatever it may be. So the winter sports don't really get at Christmas break. And some of them extend into spring break. They're still playing at that point if they're playing, advancing far enough in the season. So they don't really get a Christmas break. So the coaches just got to structure things a little bit differently for them. They may get a break from classes, but they're still practicing and they're still doing what they do to try to culminate their season in February and March.
Now, I've got to ask you personally, when we first started this Uncaged podcast, it's been a while since we put another one out, but how have you transitioned being the new athletic director here at Broken Arrow?
Man, I hope I've done well. I mean, I feel like I've done well, and I feel like I've just fit in and let people do what they do. And in my first year, I'm just trying to observe and seeing what we're doing, and there's things that we can do differently or things that we can do better. And we'll find out when we talk with Coach Jones. I'm sure he'll say the standard is the standard, and BA standard. We make no excuses for that. We make no apologies for that. And so I want to come in and continue to carry that forward and not drop that down. So transition wise has been great. Just getting to know people, getting to have conversations, develop relationships with people and plugging myself and my family into what BA is all about. And it's been a great transition for us.
You've been all over the place with your athletic journey. Do you pinch yourself seeing the facilities that are being constructed here? I mean, eventually the field house will be just the home for basketball. We'll have a brand new wrestling facility. I mean, do you sometimes just sit back in your office and go, I'm not at a high school, I'm at a mini college?
Well, when before I came on here, I had a guy come in from Arkansas that was an AD over there, and he wanted to just see what we have. And he kept patting me on the back and just saying, man, you are blessed. This is incredible what you have. And we truly do. We have a facility or facilities that are just top notch and the envy of a lot of people. And so for me to be able to, I told somebody the other day, I come to work every day smiling just because I'm blessed to be able to be here and be at BA and part of the BA family, because I think this is a phenomenal place with phenomenal people that has phenomenal potential. So I smile all the time, and my wife sometimes will look at me like, what are you doing? I'm just like, man, I can't believe they let me work here and let me be part of this, because it's a phenomenal place.
Coming up next, we'll be joined by boys wrestling coach Rodney Jones as we dive into the wrestling program that gets set for Ohio on the Uncaged podcast.
Your side hustle keeps you moving. We'll help you get where you really want to go. TTCU Federal Credit Union. Life is better in balance.
Tulsa Bone and Joint, Northeast Oklahoma's sports medicine experts. We are pleased to help you and the athletes in your life with a number of surgical and non-surgical options. Tulsa Bone and Joint is proud to serve as team orthopedist for local high schools such as Broken Arrow, Owasso, Sapulpa, Cascia Hall, and Bishop Kelly. We're also proud to be team orthopedist for FC Tulsa. Tulsa Bone and Joint, moving life forward.
For families who like to build their wealth while staying liquid, we have flexible rate CDs to keep your funds working hard, even when you're not. First National Bank of Broken Arrow. The right balance.
At Ascension St. John, you'll find advanced heart care, brain and spine care, and personalized cancer care. And we excel just as much in the things that can't be measured. Listening more closely, caring more compassionately.
Life happens in a hurry. Our money experts will help you keep up. TTCU Federal Credit Union. Life is better in balance.
And welcome back to the Uncaged podcast, episode number 2. We're joined by Executive Athletic Director Dustin Smith and head wrestling coach Rodney Jones. Coach, big win over Stillwater. I know it's been a little bit since then, but just tell me about the makeup of this team and how excited you are with this crew.
Absolutely. We started in the right direction. Obviously, have real tough competition right out of the gates with Stillwater. But we're looking at it, and we didn't talk as much about Stillwater when we just talked about the date. And that was our first opportunity to get to compete. And excited about this team, excited for the opportunity this season to see what they can do. Got a good group of guys, kind of a mixture of old guys coming back and some new guys trying to make a name for themselves. And absolutely, that win against Stillwater was a step in the right direction.
Well, Coach, you talk about we visited before we got on here about the national rankings and BA being in those for the first time in 3 years, and just the honor that is to be considered in that group. And then you can say we looked at the date of Stillwater, but historically what Stillwater has been, and defending state champions and getting an opportunity to go and wrestle and seeing your kids succeed in a way that they did at their place. You gotta be thrilled with how that started.
No, absolutely thrilled, and absolutely, knew exactly what we were getting into when we went to Stillwater, and feeling good about it going into it, knowing who we had in the lineup, and knowing what kind of lineup they could probably put together. One way of looking at it is they've won the last 3 dual meets in a row, and so it's good to kind of reverse that and get on the winning side, which historically we don't lose 3 duels in a row to most anybody, and they've had a really, really good program, and they've had a really, really good teams here in the past few years, and so and they have a really, really good team this year. So coming out of the gates and looking towards that level of competition and having that level of competition to prepare for really, really helped us out, and I think our guys kind of stepped up and kind of put their foot down and let people know that maybe we haven't been to the level that we're used to being in the past few years, and it's good to start the season out the way that we did and also get the recognition nationally, which we're used to.
And what I value most is we are our own standard. We're not comparing ourselves to Stillwater. We're not comparing ourselves to Edmond North or whoever it may be. It's what BA's standard is, and we want to uphold that. And you're wanting to get back to that spot to where you said the last couple of years we haven't been to where our standard is, but you feel like this group is a group of kids that can get us to where our standard is back to where it's supposed to be.
100% headed in the right direction. Since 1998, the wrestling program has won 20 state championships. That's second to none to anybody in the area, and obviously we have a standard that we're trying to live up to. It started back with Coach Dunlap and Coach Allen and Coach Jones, Sean Jones, and then now where I'm at as far as the head coaching position, but just trying to live up to that standard. And there's a lot of good programs out there right now. There's a lot of good teams out there. But one of the things that we try to focus on is what we can control, and what we can control is just staying consistent. Mm-hmm. Staying consistent. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've had a few years here, we're not finishing, quite where we like to finish or where we're used to finishing, but it doesn't mean we abandon the process. And we're going to stick to what we do. We're going to be consistent in what we do. And, like I said, from 1998 to now, we've won 20 state championships. There's no other program in the state, especially in 6A, that can say that they've done that. Right. So as long as we kind of stick to what we usually do and how we do things, things come and go. And right now, I think we're kind of headed in the right direction and headed back to where we want to be, especially when it comes to the end of the year.
Now I want to go back to media day. I talked with the boys in the facility, and they get the feeling like, this is it on this facility. They know the new building that's coming in, but especially for the seniors, I mean, this is their last chance at, a championship and whatnot. And you got Ironman coming up. We're going to dive into a little bit about what that means heading to Ohio, but just kind of closing out this chapter in this facility, because the guys want to definitely raise one more banner before they get out of that facility.
That's always the expectations. The expectations is always to try to take the group of guys that you have, the team that you have, and to make that team the best that they can be. And when you're at Broken Arrow, when you take that group of guys and you make that group of guys the best they can be, sometimes, or most of the time, it usually ends up with a championship. And so that's always the expectation. And so going into this season, we don't lower our expectations. We don't change our expectations. The expectations are the same, although, fully knowledgeable of what's out there and who's out there and things like that. It doesn't change what we do on a day-to-day basis, and it doesn't change the expectations of the guys. Yeah, they definitely want to continue the tradition of Broken Arrow wrestling.
Well, Coach, wrestling is a mano y mano. It's 1 versus 1. You're not out there. I mean, I know there's a team, and you don't win dual state by beating Stillwater in November. I mean, you're looking forward to February, obviously, and trying to build towards that point and when state is. Talk about the mindset of a kid going into a match, knowing that it's me against him, but I've got to do my part for the 12 or 13 other guys that are here in order for the team to be successful. I've got to do my part. So talk about that mentality of one-on-one and just winning your match and controlling, as you said earlier, controlling what you can control. You can't control what the heavyweight's going to do if you're wrestling at 156 or whatever it may be. You can't control what that outcome is, but you can control your controllable, which is your match. So talk about that one-on-one mindset that you have to have as a wrestler.
Wrestling is an extremely unique sport. Obviously, you've got 14 weights on a team, and all 14 have to be at different weight classes. So that makes it pretty challenging, but that's wrestling. And everyone understands that if they do their job and worry about what they have to do in their individual matchups, and then they're going to do what's best for the team and ultimately in the outcome of the entire dual meet. Yeah, I mean, there's issues that are challenges for each individual to get himself ready and probably try to block out what else is going on with the other 13 individual matchups. But they've grown up in wrestling, and they know how to do that, and they understand how the process of getting ready for their individual matches. But when it comes down to it, is you need all those guys.
Right.
You need all those guys to train. You need the other guys that are not on the varsity 14 in the room training with you. So maybe not so much in those individual matchups do you have that team aspect, as far as a teammate can't run out there in the middle of the mat and help you score a takedown. You've got to do it all by yourself. But a teammate can absolutely help you improve in your skills and your techniques and your training inside the wrestling room. So it's definitely unique. But these guys all have a whole lot of experience, and they've been a part of it for a long time, so they know how to handle it.
Well, one question I want to dive into just a little bit. The mentality is what the mentality is, and you've got those 14 guys. So take a look at it from a coach's perspective. You don't have those 14 all out there at one time.
Right.
So each kid is unique. Each kid is different. And so how you communicate to those kids is different. How someone's going to respond may be different. This one may need a pat on the back. This one may need hey, I'm expecting better out of you. How is that for you to have to adjust per match as a coach to be able to connect to that kid?
Talking to each kid individually and building a relationship with each kid individually, you kind of know what makes them tick and what they need to get going. And you're right, some kids need a kick in the butt. Some kids need a rub on the back, and encouragement. And you develop that over the season, and maybe some trial and error, maybe some failure in there at some points. Maybe you're too hard on them and they don't perform, or you're too easy on them and they don't perform. You kind of go through that, and you kind of learn that throughout the season. But for the most part, as a coach, and understanding all of the different dynamics that go into a dual meet, believe it or not, the coin flip at the beginning of the match can be important.
Right.
You choose odd or you choose even, who puts out first, who does certain things during the match. It could come down to who wins the coin flip. So you understand that as a coach. The wrestlers probably not as much, but as a coaching staff, those are things that we discuss and we talk about. And I think most importantly in any competition, especially with high school students, is that as long as you keep your emotions under control and you keep yourself calm and focused, they'll follow suit and they'll look towards you. Now, if you're ranting and raving and cussing at the referee and causing turmoil on the bench, then they're probably going to get a little bit anxious or nervous or anything like that. So the best thing to do, especially in intense competitions, is try to keep your emotions in check.
Yeah.
Now, you guys are heading to Ohio bright and early tomorrow morning. There's a lot of different teams in this, teams that you normally don't face. It's going to give you a real test of where your squad is at before we dive into the season and, conference and everything. Break it all down for me. What's it like going on a road, especially a long road trip all the way to Ohio?
It's good for a lot of reasons. It gives our guys something to really look forward to really train for. They know the level of competition that they're getting ready to get into. So it's kind of getting their feet wet and not taking their time, but just completely diving into the deep end and going after it. The competition is in, like I was talking before, it's gotten tougher over the years. I was doing a little research watching a little video last night on our video platform, and we have videos all the way back to 2000, 2009. And we've been going to this tournament for a long time. It's been a staple on our schedule, and it doesn't change. And so our kids, we have guys that have been there before and they've experienced it before, and they understand the level of competition. So I think it kind of gets them going in the season a little bit sooner as far as that level of competition. And it all has a purpose. And the purpose right now is to get these guys in really good competitions so they know what it's going to take at the end of the year when they find themselves in a really good match at the state tournament. Maybe it's a semifinal match or it's a placing round match, and that's the kind of competition that they're going to be in. So the more we can take them to these events and they can get used to that, then, like we like to say, they will be battle tested. And when we get to that point, it won't be anything new to them. They've been there, done that before.
So when I wrestled back in the day, I wrestled at 101 back in the day when that was a weight class. But it used to be you'd start with the lightweight and you'd wrestle. Heavyweight would culminate the evening. That's not necessarily the case anymore.
Changed.
So explain to our listeners a little bit how the process goes into selecting who wrestles when and what weight class goes up, and then the strategy from a coach of, hey, we can forfeit this match, because you got to think about points. You may not necessarily need the points for this match. So you start thinking about the outcome overall, but talk about the strategy that goes into the coaching side of things when you don't start with your lightest weight and then with the heavyweight. You may start at 215 or whatever it may be. That may be the first match, when usually that was back in the day. That used to be the
last
cut-in
one.
match.
Yeah.
Once again, a lot of factors and a lot of things are in play in a dual meet competition, and one of those is the random draw. Now, if two coaches agree that I'm kind of a traditionalist, I like to start at the lightest weight and with the biggest weight, especially if I see no strategical advantage of maybe having a blind draw, and you see that most of the time during the regular season is both coaches will agree to kind of do traditional, start at the lightest weight and end with the heavyweight. Now at the dual state championships, that is a random draw. It'll be two different. Well, this year it'll be a one-day tournament, so it'll be you start at one weight and they'll draw it, and then it determines what the last weight, and that does play into your strategy when it comes down to who you put on the mat against what opponent you put on the mat. There's times that you may take one wrestler in weight class X and decide that he may be better off against their opponent in the other weight class. And so you may either insert somebody else in that weight class, or you could forfeit that weight class and bump, wrestler up to get a better matchup or, for the team. And all those, that happens 14 times during a dual meet. And usually it is determined by what weight you start at.
Well, and the reason I asked that question is because the random person that may just come watch, that doesn't have wrestling understanding, doesn't understand that there's a strategy as part of that. Not that it necessarily may change who you put out there, but it may change what class you put them in. Obviously, you can't put a heavyweight in the lightest weight. I mean, they're stuck in their spot, but you may bump a 215-pounder up or 235, whatever it is. In Arkansas, it's 215 and then heavyweight. And I don't know if Oklahoma's that same weight distribution, but you may bump up the 215-pounder to wrestle heavyweight because it's a better matchup for them or whatever it may be. But there is a strategy that goes into it. It's not just coach, not just sitting over there on the sideline
hanging out,
just keeping a score. He's actually got a strategy to that, and I wanted to make sure people understood that there's a lot more to it than just guys going out there and wrestling.
I think so. And for the person that doesn't know a whole lot about wrestling, I think it would be challenging for them to walk into a high school dual meet and to appreciate all those little nuances that are going on. But living in the state of Oklahoma and being tradition-rich wrestling state, I think majority of the people kind of understand the scoring system, the takedown, the points, the match points, the dual points. But when it comes down to what your play is going to be strategically, you keep that pretty close to the chest. And then, believe it or not, you watch that coin flip at the beginning of the match where the captains go out there in the center and the referee flips a coin, and you're kind of like thinking, that really doesn't mean anything. Well, it can mean either winning or losing the duel, depending on the outcome of that coin flip.
Well, in full transparency, Coach Jones and I don't talk before a match to say
Right.
what's your strategy. I mean, I let him do his thing and let him coach. I mean, he's been ultra successful and he knows what he's doing. But me just going to observe, I can just go and I'll see kind of behind the scenes of thought
Strategy,
process and
yeah.
just see, okay, I see why he's doing that. But some people may go to a match and not have any idea and just say, okay, he's just throwing people out there. Well, there's a strategy into that process. And Coach Jones and I will never sit down and say, okay, why are you doing that?
Right.
Because that's not, I mean, that's his job and that's what he's going to do. And he's been successful at it. But I think it's important for people that are listening or watching to understand that there's a lot more to it than just putting a kid out there on a mat.
100%. Coach Jones, we appreciate you stopping by on this episode of Uncaged with head coach Rodney Jones, the Broken Arrow Tigers wrestling program. I want to thank athletic director Dustin Smith for joining me as well. Until next time, go Tigers.